Welcome to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you choose on your terms. Today is Friday, July 12th, 2024. This is episode 927 of Living Free in Tennessee.
Okay.
It's been a while since episode 8.
Yeah.
Yep.
You're live.
I know. Is that your notice that we're live?
Yeah.
Are you ready to be live? I'm putting the mic closer to you because you're in stealth mode today.
I'm in scatterbrain mode today.
He's in walk away from the mic while he talks, which is stealth mode. Makes it much harder to hear. Anyway, folks who are on the live stream, I did put it out on Telegram, but I did not put it out on Facebook and all the other places. So if you're on social media, let folks know that we're live. It's a Homestead Happenings show. So we are going to talk about, what are we going to talk about today? Ram logistics. Not Dodge Ram, but actual live rams. We're going to talk about gardening when also not home, and canning season update, some infrastructure stuff. There's going to be a longer than usual. Hi, Chris. There's going to be a usual than Chris. Will I see you this weekend? Because I want to ask you to do a demonstration at Self-Reliance Festival. So we should talk about that. Anyway, we're going to talk about the history of the Holler Pond. So lots of stuff to talk about. If you've got questions, do your best to put the word questions in all caps. That helps me actually see what you have to say. And then we can build them into the show as best we can. This weekend, I'm teaching a cheese class. Did you know that?
Yes.
Why did you know that?
Because you're going to be gone.
Because I'm going to be gone. Is that the only reason? Or was there like cheese palooza in the kitchen?
I wasn't hardly in the kitchen, so I didn't I knew that you were in there making cheese, but...
Yeah, I made cheese, like a big whole day of cheese. Yeah, David, cheese. I have had a really interesting cheese adventure with my feta. It tastes good, but it kind of looks funny. I think that my culture has lost its potency, so it's not as potent, and I'm ordering new culture. But I made the feta, and then you hang feta to drain for like 12 hours, so it's nice and dry. Cut it up, it's great, and it rose like baked bread, so it has a whole bunch of little air bubbles in it.
Yeah, I actually thought it was bread when I walked in. I was like, why are you making bread?
Yeah, so I ended up tasting it to see if it tasted good. And it tastes good. It tastes like feta. Well, it tastes like young feta that hasn't aged. So what I think happened is, like, most of the culture development happens before you put the whatever that stuff's called in it, that I hopefully will know the name of tomorrow when I'm teaching class. Rennet. Yeah. And I'm thinking about the fact that right after this, guys, I jump into my truck and start driving with the camper behind me for the first time, which makes me a little nervous. So I think what happened is it continued to develop rapidly after the rennet was put in, and it basically gave me air bubbles like bread. So the mouthfeel is very interesting, but I'm going to let people in the class taste that. So I'm bringing it with me. That's why I made it. I think it's going to be pretty fun. And then I can tell the story. Like, a lot of times when I teach a cheese class, I talk about, like, even if something goes wrong, you still end up with cheese. So it's all good. David wants to know, how often do you normally cut the cheese while working with it? And the answer is as many times as required to make the cheese good.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Featured event of today's show, Self-Reliance Voices webinar series at selfreliancefestival.com/webinar. We've got Billy Bond, Jack Spirko, Alan Booker, and Bear Independent, where it's over 4 days in the evening at 7 p.m. If you sign up, it's a free webinar. Free. Yes, I'm going to try to upsell you tickets to selfreliancefestival.com, of course. But it won't be like a big sales pitch. What we do is we watch past presentations of Self-Reliance Festival. We discuss them. If you get on live, we can integrate your questions at the end or in the middle. And then we also have a good time watching these, get really excited about the festival, and it's a good time. If you cannot make the 7 p.m. Central show or webinar, I call everything a show now. Anyway, If you can't make it, you do have access to the recordings through the first week of August, so you can go back and watch them. So sign up for that at selfreliancefestival.com/webinar. Also want to thank our 2 sponsors of today's show. I am working on my 2023 taxes. Did you know that?
You're always working on taxes.
How happy am I when I'm working on taxes?
About as happy as I am when I gotta go to town.
Yeah, so not super happy, but I've been working with people like Matthew Sursley of agoristaxadvice.com to analyze how I'm structured, make sure that makes sense for the ways that we generate revenue here, and then find out what tax write-offs I can figure out and track. And then I'm working with a really awesome financial person to automate as much of that tracking as possible, which actually makes me a little bit happy when I'm working on my 2023 taxes, because I know that I finally am going to code pirate ship as, this is going to shock everybody, shipping. And then next time it comes through, it's going to code itself. And useful. I get roughly, I don't know, 500 transactions a month that are that one. That in the past years I've had to go through and go shipping. So anyway, it's been a really cool thing. Anyway, so I love his weekly email he sends out where he'll highlight a way to like track something that you maybe didn't know you could track that was a tax write-off. You can figure it out if it happens in your business, but it's also great to work with him so he can analyze what you're doing and you can get sort of those outside eyes on that and make your best decisions, keep more of your money in your pocket. He does a monthly webinar, agoristaxadvice.com/webinar. Our second sponsor of today's show is your favorite person with a crystal ball. Do you know who that is?
Good old Pug.
John Pugliano of the Wealth Steading podcast, where he used to say, I don't have a crystal ball. And then Tactical gave him one. And now he's actually been really good. Ever since then on the podcast, he's always said, well, I do have a crystal ball now, but I can't see the future. So, he totally had to change what he said. It was pretty funny. Anyway, the Wealth Steading podcast is a great way to bone up on your financial literacy. John Pugliano shares how he's making investment decisions, how world events impact how he makes those decisions. And it's a nice balanced view of how the world is going. Plus, the guy has a voice made for radio. So real easy to listen to, very knowledgeable fellow. And he's one of us. He likes to give freely to the community. I don't mean like give money, but if you're at an event and you talk to John, you ask him a question, he's not like, sign up for my course. He's like, I'll just answer your question. He's been a great supporter of the show, great supporter of a lot of us in the network. Check him out, thewealthsteadingpodcast.com. With that, it's time for me to tell you what the pond was. When I moved here 17 years ago, the pond already had a broken dam. I moved in and there was a pond at the base of, because I live on a hill, at the base of the hill, which is sort of a logical place for a pond to be. Plus that's where my spring is for my water. And it had been dammed up and then the dam had been destroyed. And it was either destroyed because one of the city roads people knocked over the dam with a piece of heavy equipment, which may have happened. Or we had what would be a normal Tennessee rain event where we get 6 inches of rain at one time and there was a lot of pressure on it. I don't know what happened. I sort of think it might have involved the former.
Very likely.
Because of the way the dam broke. Usually it would break out, not in. Just saying. And sort of a would mean it broke in. And I always had it in my mind, I really ought to, I don't know, like dam it up and figure it out. Nick Ferguson came out. He's like, you could dredge some of that muck off the bottom and get a little bit deeper of a pond, which would be cool. And it's always been one of those things that I sort of wanted to mess with, but there's been a lot of other priorities, like water flowing under my house seemed like more important to deal with than the fact that a pond that's not hurting anything has a broken dam. And then the redneck moved in and started poking at the dam. And in the last couple of months, particularly as it got hotter, because he doesn't actually go in the water to go swimming, but apparently he's totally willing to stand up to his knees in mud in the water on a hot day, poking at a dam. He started getting involved in poking at it. So last week, we kind of said there was a progress report where you had a drain pipe through the dam. Where are we at now with the pond?
It's actually sealed now. And I've got a chunk of the old cinder block and concrete retaining wall removed and replaced with rock and clay. And that's probably 4 to 5 feet thick at this point. And I probably will not get around to pulling the rest of the retaining wall out anytime soon because it's not really in the way of anything now. But the dam is actually holding, and I've raised the water level in the pond 2 to 3 inches to kind of test for leaks in some areas. And so far, everything's holding. So at this point, that area I'm still building up a little bit. And once I get that area stabilized a little bit more, I'm probably going to raise the level in the pond another 3 inches
So
at least.
why are you doing this? What's the big picture purpose of changing how the pond is?
That's been one of those, the leaking dam is one of those things that just makes my OCD twitch.
Okay,
And
but
it's
what's the real reason for the impact on the property? I don't care about your OCD. Sorry.
but there's also a level of, even with the minor amount of rain that we've been getting, I'm guesstimating there's 360 gallons of water going through that pipe that I put in right now.
In a day, you mean?
An hour.
An hour. Okay.
And so that's something that can be utilized. But the bigger reason that I started poking at that whole project was the fact that that hillside is where they took a bulldozer and pushed all the big rocks off to flatten some areas out. And so every time I've got to go down there to like chase ducks out of the pond or something, it's basically borderline mountain climbing. And I'm like so sick of that.
So you want to smooth it out?
So the main area that I'm working right now is basically the edge of the pond and about 5 to 10 feet up from that. And already it's gotten to where I can basically walk.
So working on it by adding soil, or what are you doing?
I'm adding rocks, so I'm building a rock wall around the entire perimeter of the pond, at least on not the road side of the pond, but the other 3 sides. And when I say that, there's a couple of areas where there's already either slab rock or there was really, really big rocks that.
So you're building like a rock shelf you can walk on.
Yeah, basically. Okay. And then some of the rocks, like there's a couple of them that are so big that I can't quote move them, but they're on the side of a really steep hill. So a little nudge with the tank bar and they tend to slide down the hill. And if I do it right, they stop about where I would like them to be. And so I used that technique to build basically a rock walkway that's about 3 feet high going through. And then in the process of doing that, there's also a lot of dirt going down the hill. And so I'm using that to fill in behind it. So essentially what you're going to end up with is, in that spot, is a rock wall that's like 2 foot wide with a raised bed on either side that comes up even with the rock. So it's actually going to be a really nice place to sit. I was actually thinking about it the other day and I was like, we need to put a gazebo down here. The only reason we need to put a gazebo down here is so that I can sit down there in the morning and have coffee, but I can have the coffee maker down there under cover so that I don't have to walk back up to get another cup of coffee.
Or you could just bring your camp stove.
That's true.
Yeah. Or borrow mine. I don't care. It's in the camper. Except for the camper is leaving this weekend. So you can't use it this weekend. Yeah. My camper has a propane stove, but I still have a camp stove just in case. Because 2 is 1, 1 is none. 3 is for me. So anyway, that sounds really cool. I think the bigger impact will be that I just got a bunch of error notices. That was weird. I think the bigger impact will be that we grow more grass there. We can run the sheep through. The sheep can
Yeah.
help build soil. It's going to be interesting to see what happens though when we get a Tennessee large rain event.
Yeah, well, that's actually part of the other reason is there is an area there that was always steep, and it's steeper now because erosion. So I'm starting at the bottom and working my way up, but in theory, that area should stop getting steeper now.
Because
And
you've
then
slowed the water down.
because I'm slowing the water down and I've got a rock wall, so it's going to start to build somewhat of a terrace. And then that area is never going to grow grass right now because the weeds take over because you can't run a lawnmower through there. And it's actually really difficult to run a weed eater through there because you might have, a big rock here and a big rock there, and there's 6 inches in between the two, but it's like a foot deep, and the weeds are growing from the bottom, so you can't get the weed eater in there. So that's another thing that I'm working on is getting it to where I can run the weed eater. And in some of the places, like there's two spots where it's like I never want to have to run the weed eater right here. And it's like 2 square feet of dirt. So I planted a ton of comfrey in there because I know the comfrey is going to explode and take over and shade anything else out there. So in those two spots, I'm going to end up with just nothing but comfrey, and then I don't have to worry about controlling anything.
Makes sense. Okay, our next segment is forage, and we've got Jerusalem artichokes coming on all over the holler, so it's time to mark them. If you see Jerusalem artichokes, mark your artichokes so that you can get them in the fall after the leaves die back, when you will not know what they are anymore because they will just look like sticks. Blackberries are ripe. Aren't you happy about that?
Don't care.
He didn't weed whack my one blackberry plant that has blackberries on it, which is good, but he did throw something on top of it, making it hard for me to get to it.
I don't even know where it is.
It's in where the pond is supposed to be by the shower.
Still don't know where it is.
Okay, well, I can point it out to you. And then we have like the usual summer forage, red clover, dandelion flower, daylily, all of that stuff is out and about. And I've been feeding mulberry leaves to the rabbits. They're starting to kind of like them.
Yeah.
They were a little hesitant. I haven't fed the white rabbits though. Which brings us to the next segment, because you don't have anything to say about forage ever, except for if the grass is growing or not for the sheep. It's growing slower, guys, because it's hotter. Livestock. Let's talk about Bruni. So we walked out. So my first day back from California was Tuesday morning, which I'm dealing with a time zone change at that point. So getting up was not my favorite thing to do. And then I'm like, I'm going to have I walk the dogs. I'm going to have my coffee. Tactical's like, I need you to come to the pasture. And I'm like, well, crap. I had like a 12:30 live. I had all these things I wanted to do that morning, and going to the pasture. I'm like, what do you need help with? And he's like, well, Bruni's got blood all over her butt. And at this point, I'm like, oh, I hope it's not a prolapse or something.
Yeah.
He's like, kind of by her tail. I'm like, oh, okay, that's better. And then the dog was out. So like maybe the dog bit her, which would have been really awful to have to deal with. And finally, I'm like, screw it. I'm just going to go over there and see. And so I suited up in my overalls and we went over, and sure enough, she had blood all over her butt, like on the hip part of her butt, more than like.
Yeah, it was more the side of it and going up the side and over the top of her tail.
Yeah, and there were flies, and I'm like, okay, the flies are going to lay larvae in there. We're going to get fly strike. It's going to kill her if we don't deal with it. So, and the day before she'd been fine, like the night before she'd been fine. So this happened overnight. We don't know what happened.
It was about 12 hours.
Yeah. It was like, what in the world? So I told him what to get. He came back to the house, got all the stuff. And I had already put like rubber gloves in my pocket because I've been wanting to glove up when dealing with first aid more than I used to, just to make sure I don't get something weird from the animals. And so he caught her, and she's been like pretty friendly as far as letting us touch her when we have sheep treats. So
Yeah.
I've just learned that animal crackers are her kryptonite.
Yeah.
So we should get some animal crackers.
Okay.
But he got her, he held her, and I took water and Dawn dish soap and scrubbed it so I could see what was going on. And it was a single puncture where it looks like a tick had gotten on there. So like all that blood was from a tick.
Yeah.
And there were 2 other ticks I pulled off, and I got it scrubbed really well and infected. And I don't think we had fly strike in there, but we should look closely again if you haven't been able to. Have you been able to?
I haven't gotten too
Yeah.
close.
So got it all cleaned off, and I put blue coat on it because I didn't have a better option. There is a better option for keeping flies off wounds, but we also put pine tar around it, which makes it smell like smoke, which is deterrent for bugs, just like the wood vinegar in the garden. And she's doing okay, right?
Yeah, as far as I can tell, she's fine.
Yeah. So that's like, it's like Murphy's law of me coming home is that there's first aid problems, which have continued all week. Chestnut was at the vet on Monday, and she's old. Tigger was at the vet on Thursday, and he's old.
Tigger's really old.
He is really old. He's like 92 years old in cat years.
They actually had a chart, and I was looking at it, and he was like
92.
88 or something like that.
92. I looked at the chart while I was there.
Mm-hmm.
He'll be 96 next year.
Okay.
Yeah, if he's around.
Yeah.
We don't know. So he doesn't have anything that they can figure out what it is, other than he's losing all his hair and losing weight and getting old, and he's also confused, and yeah. So that was fun. And I'm sure there's other first aid things I haven't noticed, but the rabbit ears are mite free at this time. So I was like, well, I might as well just look at rabbit ears on spec to see how that's going. Speaking of rabbits, I think we need to use the thing you built for the rabbits so they are not in a tower in the outdoor kitchen.
We need to find a place to put it.
Yeah, that's shady.
Yeah, we just removed a lot of shade.
Right. So this weekend, while I'm not here, can you look around for a nice shady spot for rabbits that's convenient to get to?
Okay.
Because I think we just need to do it from a maintenance standpoint. And then I was thinking we could put cement trays with holes drilled in so they drain on a tilt under there until we build whatever it is going to be built for rabbits long term.
Okay.
Because I think it's going to be months till that's done, maybe longer.
Yeah.
I mean, I almost feel like if we can get them stable somewhere and maybe reinstall the rabbit automatic watering system for them, if that can be done, we'll get through the winter and can concentrate on the workshop instead of a rabbitry. But maybe that's not what needs to happen.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I don't think either of those are happening relatively quickly. And I actually have been looking for a spot to stick that and have not settled on.
Yeah.
Well, I don't even have any ideas yet.
Okay. Well, if you don't have an idea by Sunday, we'll schedule a walk around the property. Probably not on Sunday, but maybe on Sunday.
Yeah.
I just know how I'm going to be on Sunday.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a conversation he and I had not had yet, guys. The ducks are on strike. We got 1 egg yesterday, but we got 6 chicken eggs. So we're moving to chicken eggs for food.
Yeah.
Boo. It's not unusual in July that they molt and then they stop laying eggs for about 45 days. Or something's getting the eggs. So we'll have to assess that better. Tactical found a new way to get rid of wasps in the chicken coop. There were a lot of wasps nests in there, and it was to the point where I was not going to go get eggs.
Yeah, I stopped counting. There were probably between 7 and 10 wasp nests in there.
Yeah.
And I did not want to spray
wasp
some type
spray
of wasp poison in an area where my birds are gonna be confined, and I was gonna use a oil that I use for can oil similar to WD-40, but I was like, that's going to leave a lot of residue behind. And when I was walking down there, I was like, wonder what the brake cleaner would do, because that stuff will basically evaporate in 2 or 3 minutes. And apparently wasps really don't like brake cleaner.
I'm not sure if chickens should eat brake cleaner either, though.
No, but it does not leave like a film behind, and it basically evaporates within 2 or 3 minutes completely. And that's why I opted to use that instead of anything else that I had.
So in last season, we had a problem with wasps getting into the outdoor shower and hanging out in nests between the boards, like in that wall that we made that has fence boards as siding on both sides, and they get through the cracks and there'd be wasp nests. So then you'd be taking a shower and a wasp would come out and look at you naked, and then you'd scream. Remember that?
Scream.
Remember that?
I remember that.
Yeah, so we haven't had wasps there since I hung that fake wasp nest near there, like a paper wasp nest. So I'm thinking we put another fake wasp nest in the chicken coop, because they came in like a 6-pack or a 4-pack or something. So I have a bunch of them. Yeah. We'll see. That has totally worked. Like, I have had 0 wasp visitors in the outdoor shower, which is good.
Yeah.
I have the thornless blackberry that I need to train, though.
Okay.
Anyway, that's the deal. That's it on livestock, I believe. Anything else on livestock you got? Oh, rams are moving over.
Yeah. That's going to be a whole thing. The first thing that's happening is I'm going to be adjusting our fencing over here, because we're going to figure out how painful an electric fence can be.
Yep. So the rams need to move over. There's 5 males, I believe. I was counting them while I was over at the pasture the other day by looking at how many balls were hanging down. And I'm pretty sure we have 5 boys, which has been sort of since all the babies were born. I wasn't 100% sure, because they all move around. You're like, wait, did I count you already? Wait, did I count you already? So they're starting to test the fence over there. They're causing problems with the dog food house. And ultimately, they are going to be meat. So they can move over here. No dog food problems. And the only problem is we need to keep them in. And rams tend to test the fence more than the girls.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to say?
No.
Okay. So I'm hoping that'll happen this week. But you ordered $1,000 worth of fence materials.
Yeah, I ordered like a 4-pack of reels, some more wire, a bunch of other jumper wires, and a 12-joule fence charger.
Yeah. That's going to be fun if I don't know that the fence is charged in the garden.
It should theoretically have the capability of knocking you square on your back.
Okay. So we'll have to communicate better about that than we have in the past.
Okay.
He's like, I'm going to prank her. He's got that look on his face. Look at that. Okay. Pack Rat says, I've heard that dish soap works for wasps, but I've never been brave enough to try it.
It supposedly that will suffocate the wasp. I have used that technique before, and it has been my experience that it does not suffocate them, but it does immobilize them and put them on the ground. So when I used that technique, lots of Dawn dish soap and some water, get them on the ground and step on them.
Okay. He goes into my roasting shack with a pair of pliers and just carries them off.
That's usually the easiest way to deal with that one.
Yeah. That's usually the random flyby. So I don't like wasps at all.
No.
Yeah. And you know I don't like them. Okay, next segment's grow.
Indicated by the fact that you screamed like a girl.
I am a girl. I can scream like a girl anytime I want. I don't even have to feel embarrassed about it.
About the only time I hear you scream like a girl is if there's a wasp.
Yeah. If I scream twice, I'm probably hurt.
Okay.
Because I'll scream when I'm in a lot of pain, too. Okay. The grass is growing.
Where?
Out there. Slowly. I've been gone a lot, and I want to give you guys a perspective on gardening while away, because I'm primarily responsible for the garden on the homestead, and he's been like making sure it gets watered, but not really doing anything up there, right? Like occasionally I think you've gone through with the weed whacker or whatever, but usually I end up being the one who weed whacks up there.
Yeah, that needs to happen again.
Yes, it does. And the shade cloth is so low, it's a pain in the butt too.
Yeah. So
that's another issue. So the thing about being successful in gardening is you should make it as easy for yourself as possible. So hanging shade cloth 3 feet off the ground so you have to crawl under it is an example of what not to do, but that's the only thing we could do based on the infrastructure up there.
Yeah.
And the shade cloth has made the plants that are up there do better. So that's important.
Yeah.
But when I'm not there, what that means is it doesn't get looked at every day, because even when I come back, I feel like I'm scrambling to catch up, and that's something that is out of my sight because it's in the wrong place on my property. And so unless I make a conscious decision to remember there's a garden and go up there, it just sort of does its thing. And that means I don't see early when there are problems. And so what we've had this year is the green beans have been attacked by something, I don't know what, but it's small, it's tiny and black. It also got slugged when we had all that rain. We also had a lot of rain, and they're just like, also the spinach plants, I have a Swiss chard plant up there. Interestingly enough, my Brussels sprouts that were planted last year came back again this year, and I'm just letting them grow. They're all like attacked by the same tiny black bug that I haven't figured out what it is. But what worked on that last year was going through with wood vinegar diluted in water and making the plant smell like smoke. However, when a plant is going to need to be pollinated and that's on there, the pollinators also won't come. So for something like spinach, that's fine. You're not trying to pollinate your spinach. But for green beans, that doesn't work. And every time it rains, that washes off. So with the rain cycle, when I have done that, it's then rained 5 times and not been there. So I have not had any beneficial predators come in for that. I haven't, like, nothing magic has happened. So what's growing really well up there right now are squash, which is unusual. And I'm just going to keep putting squash seeds up there. Okay. And I've been putting bean seeds up there all the time, which I will do through the end of this month, probably. Just keep putting bean seeds in the ground and see if something happens. But at this point, I've given up on that being a really good garden this year. So if the cucumbers give me cucumbers, great. If the squash, because the cucumbers are doing okay. If the squash give me squash, great. The beans are not interested in participating this year. And since I'm not home, I'm not like the right person to force them. However, the tomato wall is in really good shape.
Yeah.
It's in really, like, the best it's ever been. And the aquaponics system is also in really good shape. So what I know about those two things is, A, they're in my actual zone 1. So I see them and I fuss with them. And B, they're set up with automated maintenance, basically. Anything that's automated is doing okay.
Yeah.
The water is perfect. The nutrient is perfect. Well, I mean, not necessarily perfect, but better. I haven't gotten up there to foliar spray as much as I'd like to in the upper garden. So with that in mind, as we go into the moving of the garden project, because basically where we're at is I'm going to start some brassicas when I get back from this weekend's trip to teach cheese making and to be at SOE. brassicas being broccoli and all of those inside, so that I can transplant them into September into at least one of the new raised beds that we're putting in my zone 1 to move the garden.
Yeah.
And then see how those go, because A, the location is better, and B, we can automate watering and other things for that, and it's better for when I'm not here too. And then I don't know what's happening with the upper garden. The other thing that's doing really well up there are marigolds. I've got
Those are just doing well anywhere.
I got badass marigold crop, and it was from self-seeded from the aquaponics system last year, and they were just like blanketing it. And when I thinned them, I moved them all over the property. In fact, I could move some to the swales, and that would be really good.
Yeah,
if we get the cardboard down.
I've got some that I put in my AP, and I've got some that I put down by the pond. And out of the stuff that I put down by the pond, the marigolds are probably doing the best, aside from the rosemary, which absolutely loves the completely horrible dry soil.
Maybe we'll finally have a living rosemary plant on my property.
And that was why I put, like, I don't know how many, 3 or 4 of them down there, is theoretically it should be very similar to the, Spanish European environment that it comes from, and it should theoretically stay a lot warmer down there in the winter, because you've got the microclimate, because it's where I put them in is right next to where the spring is. And when the pond starts to freeze, it starts to freeze on the other side of the pond.
Yeah, so they'll stay a little warmer through the winter too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. He's got peppers doing well, and the garlic has been harvested. It's okay. It's not the best garlic year. I also planted it pretty late, so that's not a surprise that the garlic heads are smaller this year.
Yeah.
And then we got all that rain.
Yeah.
That rain was fine. Like, it's always good to have rain, but that was so much rain that things that didn't want that much rain were not happy this spring.
I wish it had just paced itself and it was still raining a little bit.
This is the wish of the homesteader, right? Like, we wish the weather would do what we want instead of what it does.
Yeah.
And it's a hotter year than usual. Like, we're going up to 105 this weekend.
Maybe where you're at.
No, that's what it said on ours.
I don't believe that. I'm looking.
Okay, look. Make sure you adjust for humidity, because that's the number. That's what it quote unquote feels like. Otherwise, the number is 97 last time I looked. Anyway, that's what's happening with that. And at some point, you have to decide what your priority is. And the priority for me is my family, and then working on the things that are doing. I'm just putting more effort into the things that are doing well, rather than trying to make the things in the garden that are fighting back not do well. And actually, I'm perfectly fine with a good squash year. I like squash. Do you like squash?
Yeah.
Okay. He's not talking anymore because he needs to look at the weather app to see if I'm lying.
Oh, it does say we're getting up to 101 Tuesday.
Yeah.
That's going to suck.
Yeah, we need to keep animals alive.
Yeah.
Rabbits in particular. Oh, and we have campers here for hip camp during that heat. That's going to be miserable for them. I assume. Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully.
We'll have to make sure that they set up in that shaded area.
Yeah, the shade cool area in the back. That's like definitely a must. Okay, next up is Holler Neighbors and Community. This is where we talk about the community. And we had a couple of things happen this week. First of all is hay help goes both ways. So a friend of ours who doesn't usually ask for help asked for help unloading hay, because her partner on the homestead was not around, and hay is coming on, and we all need to get ready for winter, right? So Tactical went out and helped her, and that went both ways, because we've had trouble sourcing hay this year. So then she hooked us up with all the sources of hay available. And how was that, unloading all that hay?
It was different than what I'm accustomed to, because she actually has like the little cute door cut in the side of her barn with the little hay rack that goes up. and the bales that she got's really good hay, but it was hit or miss as to whether they were packed really tightly or a little bit loosely, which matters when you're throwing it on that little hay rack.
Hey, elevator.
Yeah, hay
Yeah.
elevator. Don't have one, so. But that's definitely the way her stuff is set up. Like, I would not want to do that by myself because you're going to be going up and down a lot.
Yeah. So it's nice to know other homesteaders in your area. And I was like really glad she asked for help because a lot of times she doesn't. And I'm like, you're by yourself today. Like, if we can get over there, we'll get over there, or somebody will get over there. So that was cool. Plus, we have the hay hookup now. And then Dawn Gorham put a picture of a hillside dill patch, which is what I've always dreamed of in my life.
Yeah.
I've always wanted one. I've never managed to get one going here. She has what I don't have. I actually wonder if it's north facing.
Yeah, I'm wondering because that one spot that I was trying worked last year. I don't think it's going to work this year.
Well, you cut the shade out.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, but I actually need to ask her where it is on her property when she's back in town. But Jen Bowman was driving through this week and lives sort of near Dawn, and she stopped by and got me like the biggest bunch of dill. Were you surprised to see that much dill in my kitchen?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like drying in my kitchen. I have unlimited dill for making dill pickles and pickled beets. Unfortunately, I don't have unlimited beets.
Yeah, I was expecting, like, when you said she was bringing by some dill, I was expecting something like the size of a flower bouquet.
It's like
not
this
like
big around and as tall as me.
close to the size of a bale of hay.
Yeah, so I'll be making pickles or whatever this year. I had beets prepped for pickling and that didn't happen. Canning's been slow for me this year with my travel schedule.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see what next week brings.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I got to get on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. But I don't have any other weekend commitments or event commitments until Self-Reliance Festival in October at this point.
Yeah.
So that'll make a huge difference because then it's just going out of town, not just like I go out of town, I come back, I speak. And if I speak on a weekend, that takes the whole weekend. And the weekend is when I get most of my homesteading stuff done.
Mm-hmm.
Like I get it done during the week. Mostly it's Friday, Saturday that the homesteading stuff happens. And so if I go somewhere like this weekend, Friday, Saturday are gone, I'm going to get home Sunday. I need to roast coffee Sunday to ship Monday. And then the week starts again. So with that in mind, and that's sort of similar to somebody who's working a job, right? Like they'll tend to do more homesteading stuff on the weekends. And then if you're gone, it's hard to do unless you can change your schedule. But I still know that I still need 57 jars of green beans to make it through the winter.
Yeah.
Or we're in trouble. So that's got to happen. And then the tomatoes will come on when the tomatoes come on.
Yeah.
We're about to hit, I think we're about to hit tomato canning season as well. And half the time I just freeze those and can them in the winter, but that's the way that is. Next up, infrastructure. We already talked about infrastructure with the grounding rods in the pond, but we've also been continuing to do camper repairs. And it seems like every time something gets done on the camper and I go to try to make it like turn it on, it does not turn on, which is frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that happened with the AC, but we got the AC working. And this is from a roof redo. And then I have a new exhaust fan, so I don't have to use the AC because we can just like suck all the air out. And that won't turn on either, which is, it has power to it. So I don't know why. And there's just, like there's always something else that needs to be done. So I'm actually super happy the roof is done because that keeps it from further degrading, but I need to make sure all the windows are sealed properly next.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I can start looking at some of the things inside because when the roof started going, a couple of places inside got wet that now need to be replaced.
Okay.
Plus I need lights.
Okay.
And wood shavings.
Okay.
Yeah. And the problem is every time I ask for him to help me on the camper, he is really not happy about it, but he'll do it. But he's not happy about it because he hates working on small things. He hates working on anything.
I don't hate working on small things. I hate working on campers.
Why?
They're
He can't think of a word that doesn't have a swear word right now. Pain in the neck?
they're very painful.
Okay.
The amount of time that it took me to fish a wire 2 feet was insane.
Yeah.
Literally, I probably spent an hour and a half trying to get a wire run that far.
Is that because there were joists in the way?
There was joists, nails, insulation. There was a hole about a 3/4 of an inch big. Just
Yeah.
a complete nightmare.
So that being said, I get to actually use the camper for its intended purpose this weekend, which is I don't have to rent a place to stay this weekend in Camden.
Hammocks are easier.
Hammocks don't work for me.
Work fine for me.
It's going to be 40 million degrees there.
Okay.
I'm going to be a diva and have air conditioning. That's the way that's going to be. And a shower. So that when I present, I don't look like I didn't have a shower.
Okay.
Yeah. I care, guys. I care. Anyway, so that's happening, but it's coming together, and someday maybe my vent will work too. We'll see what that issue is. Plus, I have to have a 4-gang plug put in because we ran the wire to where there's only 2 and they're used, which is important. And it won't plug in there anyway, even if they weren't used.
Yeah, that's why I hate campers. This is the only place that I could run it.
Yeah. So that's all fun. Anyway, that's the end of Homestead happenings. That's everything that's been going on this week. Did we forget anything?
I don't know.
How'd food go while I was gone?
Fairly well.
Yeah. You didn't cook any of the vegetables I left.
No, I spent a lot of time reheating stuff though.
Yeah.
Well,
so here's what we
actually,
learned. If I
I
leave,
didn't spend a lot of time reheating stuff. I just reheated a lot of stuff.
yeah. So if I leave vegetables for him to saute, the answer is he won't. That's
It
what we learned.
depends. I mean, sometimes I will hit it, but like it just this cycle of you being gone did not do a whole lot of cutting up of vegetables at
Right.
all.
That's very clear. That's okay. I managed to shove them down your face since I got back. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's show. If you like the show and want to support the work I'm doing here, you can do it in 2 ways. 1, get your coffee at hollerroast.com. 2, consider becoming a member. Head over to livingfreeintennessee.com to find out more. With that, guys, go out, make it a great week.